Well, it's so good to have Barbara on the show today. How you doing today, Barbara?
I'm doing good. I hope my dogs don't bark. Stop. I'm so sorry. They have never made noise during a podcast before. Settle
Well,
down.
it's always a first time for everything, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think they'll be okay. I gave them the look.
Oh, good. Same look you give our kids. Stop.
Exactly.
So, Barbara, I'm kind of curious. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received was to follow my gut, just to follow my
Oh,
own instincts, because I notice that in life when you're faced with something you're not sure what to do, and you can seek advice and ask other opinions. But when it comes down to it, I think we really do know if we really focus in on, you know, what's really going on inside us. And I've learned to trust that. And it's really helped me over the years in all sorts of ways, making decisions, determining if someone's being honest with me or not, things like that. So, yeah, trusting my gut.
I love that. I love that. I'm always curious in people's life. There's always those people that serve to inspire us, maybe even be a mentor to us. Who are some of those people in your life who have come alongside you and been an inspiration for you?
Wow, the first person that came to mind, and I haven't thought of her in a long time, was my high school teacher. I was not doing well in school. I hated high school. And I got a wonderful teacher in my senior year. And this woman put so much of her time and energy and effort in encouraging me and, you know, helping me see that I did have a different kind of and smarts, not the kind that maybe the books were teaching me. And she gave me confidence. She gave me all these books to read. I just admired her for going out of her way. And I've also admired, well, as far as a mentor, the woman who started the grief support group that I belong to, I've watched her life for the last 10 years, and she's taken her heartbreak and she's created a group for moms and dads who have lost someone. And hundreds of people, hundreds, have benefited from what she's done out of her loss. So she is definitely someone I admire and want to be like when I grow up. I actually dedicated Kevin's Choice to her. So,
That's so special. I always like to
yeah.
give my guests a chance to kind of thank those people that we sometimes forget to kind of thank for what they have done or continue to do in our lives. And so it's kind of an opportunity for my guests to say, hey, just want to let you know that I'm thinking about you.
Yes. And her name is Maggie Flightman. So, Maggie, if you're listening, I love you and thank you for everything.
That's great. You know, you've done a lot of podcasts, and I'm sure you've done this a lot, but what is something you want people to know about you they don't know about you typically?
Something they don't know about me. I'm very shy, but when I'm alone, I'm really weird. I'm really silly. Silliness is something that helps me cope. Like I talk to my dogs all day long. I sing to them. I'm just do really strange little things that no one else would ever guess I would do or be like. And for me, it's a coping mechanism, but it really works well. And I'm shy, but I've learned to come out of that. And I would like people to know that I'm genuinely care about other people. I think that's the most important thing I'd want people to know about me.
That's awesome. I love that. So I had you on because you are, and a lot of people are dealing with all kinds of grief, especially in these last 3 years. So I kind of want you to kind of give us your personal journey that led you to write Kevin's Choice.
Sure. Um, I am a single mom. I have one child named Kevin. And when Kevin was young, we had a great, we always had a great relationship. It was always really close with him. But I did notice as he was growing up that he was suffering from depression. He was a little different than some of his friends. He would isolate himself. He would get anxious about things that, a third grader probably shouldn't be anxious about. He would worry a lot. Um, so as the years went on, I did get him therapy and I got him help. But when Keven got to high school, he was introduced to drugs, as most people are in high school these days. And it was okay at first when he was just, smoking weed, but then he was introduced to heroin by some older kids, and that changed his life forever. From that moment forward, his life was all about trying not to use drugs, trying to get off drugs. Um, it took us on a journey through jail, prison, lots and lots of rehabs, mental health facilities, just horrific, a horrific lifestyle for both of us. Just with the worry, the stress, he felt so much guilt. He would steal from me. He lied to me all the time. It just strained everything, and I was just watching him. It was like I was grieving before he actually took his life. It was just so hard to see my vibrant young son turn into someone who was just so devastated on a daily basis. He would wake up every morning and the first thought was, how am I going to get money to get drugs so I don't get sick? Because at one point, you're not getting high anymore. You're using just to not go into withdrawals. It's a very vicious cycle. So eventually, Keven did give up and he chose to take his life on August 11th, 2020. At that time, I had lost someone who's like a son to me 5 years earlier. And I had a taste of what it would be like to lose Keven, but you just can't know until it happens to you. So
Sure.
in my overwhelming grief, I realized that I needed to write a book about him, because we had talked about it earlier in his life, like his success stories. He wanted to have a wonderful sobriety recovery story, but since that didn't happen, I decided to share our story so that other people who could relate to it would be able to say, look, this is what we're going through. This is what life is like for someone who's addicted to heroin. And this is what their family goes through. This is what the mental health system looks like, the rehabs. This is what prison does to people. So I wanted to share all those things. And that's why I wrote Keven's Choice.
That's a powerful story. I'm so sorry to hear that about your son.
Thank you.
You're not the only parent, I'm sure, that's going through this. What are some of the things that, as you tried to get help for Keven, that you faced, that you've had to overcome, or you couldn't figure out how to do? Because I know there's a lot of people stuck in that same place of, what steps do I need to take to help my child? And it doesn't seem like we can find the support system or the right pathway. So what were some of the things you struggle with as you
Oh,
tried to solve
boy.
this problem?
Yeah, it is so hard and you feel so alone. And you're right, there are thousands of families across the country that are dealing with this. And it's a very lonely thing because some people judge you. I mean, you would not believe some of the comments I've heard and my friends have heard about, kind of blaming us for our child's, addiction or mental health. But anyhow, some of the things that helped me was finding a support group. I tried Al Anon for a while, and it's very helpful for a lot of people. I went to a parents only group, but I ended up not feeling like what they were talking about was really helping me personally. And again, I learned to follow my gut. I think the number one thing parents need to do is educate themselves to exactly what their child is going through or any loved one is going through. Because if you understand why they're doing what they're doing and that the crimes they're doing or the immoral things they're doing, it's all related back to the drugs. It's not them. It's not their character. It's what they have to do to survive, to keep going. I also learned that, some rehabs are wonderful, some of them are terrible, and it's very hard to know. I would recommend people talking to others that before they choose one, because I made a lot of expensive mistakes in sending them certain places that ended up doing more harm than good. Um, mental health help is not as easy to find as you would think. I think it's out there in the form of therapy and psychiatry, but when someone has a mental illness that needs more than like a 72-hour hold when they're suicidal, they need more. They need to stay somewhere for a month or more to really be evaluated and put on the correct medications. And that just doesn't exist. At least I haven't been able to find that. I only know of one place in my entire county that has that. Um, I already forgot the question, but I think I answered it.
No, you did. Um, I was going to ask you, we talked about the kind of compounded problems that Keven dealt with, the mental illness and then the drugs. Let's pull those apart because I think the mental illness thing, and I'm seeing a lot of parents are dealing with that too. What advice do you have for someone whose child is dealing with some mental illness issues? You just talked about some of the struggles of trying to find a location or the kind of right kind of help for them. What advice for a parent who's got a child that's dealing with that? Say, hey, I would start with this, or I definitely wouldn't do that. Kind of
Yeah.
best practices.
Again, I would start with educating myself and looking at the resources that are available. There's usually a lot of hidden resources. And now that I've found them, I'm like, why didn't I know about this back then? Usually a county, if you go to a county website in your city or your county, they will have resources that you may not have been aware of before, and ask around. Join a Facebook group for parents that have children with mental illness and just listen and learn from them. I think that can be really helpful because you hear so many different stories and it will help you decide what's possibly best for you. Knowing the signs of what it is, and the most important is getting a really good diagnosis. And it's hit and miss. It's so hard to know if you're going to a good psychiatrist. So again, I just would ask around, try and find the best possible help for your child, be patient with your child, and understand what they're going through so that you can be supportive. And there are cases, I know a lot of families that have someone that's become violent because of their mental illness. And that's the really hard thing to deal with because what do? You can't have them in the home if you have other children or if they've threatened you. But where do they go? It's heartbreaking. There's really nowhere for them to go if they're not capable of getting a job and supporting themselves. So it's a big problem in this country. It really is.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's like a 72-hour hold. So even if you do get them a place where they're violent, in 72 hours they're out. So that's a
Yeah,
struggle unless they self commit themselves, which most chances they're not going to.
right. Yeah, it's an issue. Unless you have really, really good insurance, you might be able to find a place, or if you have the money to afford it. But for someone like me, I didn't
Right.
have that.
I went to your website and I noticed you have put together a long list of resources. Could you just kind of share your website for those who want to connect with you because of your resources? I think that's helpful to kind of know that there is a place where you've done some of the work for people.
Yes, thank you. My website is easy to find. It's my first and last name, Barbara Legere, Legere. And I have resources on there. I have a blog, links to my books, podcasts. And I'm also just started a new newsletter where I'm giving information, like really helpful information on these kind of topics. So if anybody wants to subscribe to that, I'm working really hard at finding good info. It only comes out once a month because it takes a long time to really scour through the internet and do studies and research and then find something that's going to benefit people.
Thank you, Barbara. That's great. You used this book as a way to help you work through the emotions of Kevin's suicide. Kind of tell us, how did the book help you do that?
Well, the number one thing it did was it gave me something to do and to focus on. I think if I hadn't had something to put my energy and my time into, I don't know what would have happened. I would have just been even more of a wreck than I already was. So that was one aspect of it helping me. And also it was a walk through Kevin's life. I wrote it, and as I wrote it, it reminded me of the good times. It reminded me that I did the best I could and that the mistakes I made were made in love. And it reminded me that, gosh, we're not alone. There's so many other people out there that have read that book and said, oh, someone finally understands. Or they even give the book to someone in their family and say, this is what we've been going through as a family. And it's helped other people understand their situation. So just knowing that I was helping and making a difference, and I kind of felt Kevin with me the whole time. I felt like he was encouraging me, and I believe he's still with me. I really do. I feel his presence sometimes. I talk to him all the time, and I just think he's still here, that he's pretty amazed by what I'm doing, going, wow, Mom, I never thought you would do this kind of stuff. So that makes me feel really good too.
You have a second book out, Talk to Me, I'm Grieving. Tell us about that book, and what do you hope people who pick that book up also take home with them as a resource?
Oh, thank you. Yes, that just came out last week. And I really have high hopes for this book because the people that have already read it and reviewed it have told me it really helped them. And what it is, it's more like a guidebook. It's not a real big book. I mean, here it is. But it's more like a guidebook of what to say, what not to say, and how to support someone when they're going through grief. It also talks about different types of grief. I've had other people share their stories in there, to spouse loss, sibling loss, loss of a career, loss of health, different kinds of losses. It talks about what grief feels like and what grieving people hope to hear. It talks about how our society is so uncomfortable around death and grief. A lot of times people will just avoid you because they don't know what to say, or they will say all the usual cliches that we've all been saying. I mean, I've been saying them all these years too, until I was on the receiving end and realized that hurt me, that angered me. It didn't make me feel better, it made me feel worse. So that's what the book's about, really. I just give a lot of suggestions and try to help people see that there are different phrases we can use. There are different things we can do to support someone that really benefits the griever. And then it's also for people that are grieving, because it does, I have a few sections in there, hope for the griever. So I hope it helps both people. Well, all of us are in both boats. At some point, we're all going to be grievers and we're all supporters. So I really hope it helps people. That's all I want from that book. And so far, so good.
So what are some of the common cliches that you heard that were not helpful?
Oh boy. Anytime you compare your own grief with the grieving person, like I would have people say, oh, I'm so sorry you lost your son. I lost my aunt last year and it was terrible. And I know how you feel. It's like, no, 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 no. you can't compare what you're going through. Even if you've lost your own child, you don't know exactly what the other person is from. If another mother approached me and said, I know how you feel, that would be okay, because they really do. But saying, I know how you feel, anything that follows the words at least he's in a better place. At least you can have more children. At least you can get remarried. At least he was really old. At least he's no longer suffering. None of those are good, because they're dismissing the grief. They're dismissing the loss. Another one is just making it about you instead of the person that's grieving. If you really focus and think about who you're talking to and why you want to support them, that will eliminate a lot of the common things that people say. So, yeah, I don't know if that's enough, but those are the
Oh,
top things
that's a
that
good
come to
start, because
mind.
I know people are going in their mind, I was just going to say that. So it is helpful that
Yeah, and I've said them too. I mean, I'm preaching to the I'm not preaching to anybody. I am preaching to myself too. I've said everything, not everything, because I do have a list of 100 incredibly insensitive things in the back of the book that people aren't even going to believe are real, but they are. But yeah, we've all just been trained to say the same things, and it's not helpful.
What is the most helpful thing a person can do when you're grieving?
They can not abandon you. They can remember that grief doesn't end after the funeral. It does not end in a month. It does not end in 6 months. It keeps going, especially if it's a spouse or a child. Those are really, really gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, life-changing losses. And to remember the person by checking in on them, by offering to listen, not saying, oh, if you need to talk, I'm here, because no one's going to reach out and say, I need to talk. It's very hard to do that. We don't want to burden other people. And we don't want people to get sick of hearing or talking about our child or whoever. But if you actually say, hey, I'm here, can we talk? Do you feel like talking? Do you want to talk? And also, people tend to say, let me know if there's anything I can do for you. And that's putting the burden on the griever because, when it happens, you're just, for me, I found my son. I heard the gunshot. I found my son. And I was in a state of shock. I was in a state of numbness. My mind couldn't function. I couldn't think. I couldn't think what I needed. So to anticipate what people may need and just do it without even asking, I have a whole list of things in the book that you can do, but simple things like showing up at their house with a bunch of paper products, plates, cups, napkins. And then that person doesn't have to do dishes. Then that person has something to serve food on if somebody else brings food, because somebody will bring food. Usually that's, and I think just doing things for someone in the beginning is huge. But as time goes on, write down the date that the person passed away, write down that person's birthday, and every year on that date, reach out to your friend and say, hey, I know today is the day Mitchell passed away. I'm so sorry. I'm thinking about you. Or I know today would have been John's birthday. I'm thinking about you. That means the world to me. I just went through that because 3 years ago, the 11th, August 11th is when I lost Keven. And, some people just wrote, I'm thinking about you. That's all they needed to say. That's it. It meant the world to me to hear that they remembered.
That's good. And holidays are always hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Holidays are very hard. Every family's different. My family doesn't talk about Keven. And so I want to talk about Keven. Most people don't want to take the risk that they're going to remind you or make you sad. But what really hurts is when they don't talk about him. So I always bring him up. I don't wait for anyone else to bring him up. I bring up a fun memory. Or I say something like, oh, wow, if Keven was here, he'd be eating all the rolls and nobody else would get one. Then everyone will laugh. And then somebody will say, oh, remember that time Keven did this when he was a kid? And it gets his memory alive. He's not with us, but his memory is there. And we're still remembering him by talking about him. And I think if you are at a holiday with someone that has recently lost someone, kind of feel them out. See if it would make them feel better if they did talk about the person. Because for me, personally, I love it. I'll talk about him all day, every day. That's my favorite thing to do.
That's awesome. So I'm curious in your life, Barbara, what in this season are you celebrating?
What am I celebrating this season?
Yeah. What's going well in your life this season?
Well, I can't believe I wrote a book. That's what's going well. I think I found that for me personally, and everybody has to find what works for them, but for me personally, reaching out and doing something for someone else is what helps me. I found a volunteering position that has just changed so much in my life, and it's given me something that's rewarding. It's given me an opportunity to help other people that are going through immediate grief, and that's what's going well. There's days where I don't even want to get out of bed because I'm so sad and I miss him so much. But I found that, just reaching out to others is what helps me. It really does.
That's awesome. I like to ask my guests this question. What do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy. Just that I actually helped people, that I sincerely cared, that, it's not because I'm some wonderful person, but that that's just who I am. I want to be that person that is there for you. I want to be that person that sincerely listens to you. I guess, you know what, to boil it down, I just want to be remembered as a kind, caring person. That's it.
That's good. I love that. Anything I haven't asked you that we should cover?
Well, one thing I always like to bring up, because it's such a huge issue in society today, is the fentanyl crisis that we're having, because it is
Yes.
taking people out every day. People are dying and dying and dying, and most of them are young people, late teens, early 20s. And I in my mind am so surrounded by people that know about these things that sometimes I wonder, doesn't everybody know this? Isn't everyone warning their children? And maybe they aren't, but especially here in California, it's probably this way everywhere. But fentanyl is being put in pills. It's being made to look like an Oxycontin or a Percocet or even ecstasy. And it's being sold to people. And it is impossible to determine how much is in each. Well, it's not impossible. You can actually get test strips for it, but you can't determine how much is in each pill. So if your teenager is at a party and someone's handing out pills, they may all take it and only one person will die because that one person will, take the wrong pill. It's just so scary. It's happening everywhere. And I would just suggest to parents, teach your children to not take a pill that was not prescribed to you. It doesn't matter if it's your very best friend giving it to you. I've heard so many stories. Well, she just wanted to relax, so she took a Percocet, but it wasn't a Percocet, and now she's dead. And that it's happening over and over and over. The other side of the story is that heroin's not out there anymore, or at least it's very rare compared to it used to be. Now all those people are using fentanyl, so they're at a higher risk. Keven used it for 2 years before he didn't die from that, obviously, but yeah, it's just a very dangerous drug that needs to be avoided as much as it can be. It's just so scary.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder. I see all the time that the number of deaths is tragic. So yeah, it's a
It
good
is.
reminder to parents to talk to
Yeah.
your kids about what's out there and give them a warning.
Yeah, I mean, scare them. They need to be scared, because I remember being a teenager. I tried every drug out there and I wasn't scared because nothing was going to happen to me. And I was lucky.
Right.
But today you can't live like that. It's different.
No, it's Russian roulette, honestly.
Exactly. Exactly. I use that same term.
Yeah. So Barbara, where can people find your two books, Kevin's Choice and Talk to Me, I'm Grieving, and find you on social media?
Kevin's Choice is available on Amazon. Talk to Me, I'm Grieving is also available on Amazon, but I highly encourage people to order it directly from me, from my website. Amazon has already messed up and not sent out any of the pre-orders, any of the new orders. I don't know what's going on with them, but it's always best to order directly from the distribution people, which would be my publisher or me if you want a personal signed copy. So if you go on my website and just fill out that form, you will get a book within 24 hours. It will be shipped to you. So that's what I'm hoping people will do. I mean, Amazon's great for something, but they don't like authors very much. They're not very helpful to authors.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is.
So give us your website one more time so they can look up you
It's
directly.
first and last name, Barbara Legere, legere.com.
Well, thank you, Barbara, for this, and blessings on your journey as you kind of keep Kevin's memory alive through your stories, through your memories, through you keeping him alive in your heart. We commend you for the journey you had and the journey you're making to help other people who are also dealing with grief to better process the pain and the loss that they're suffering as well.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you for your wonderful questions. It was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, blessings on your day, Barbara.